Kathleen, as an employer, we often run into problems with employees, big and small. Can an employer fire someone who's just not working out?
So in Ontario, the answer to that question is yes, as long as you're not doing it for a ground that's illegal under any of the legislation. So for instance, you can't fire someone because they're black, you can't fire someone because of their religion, you can't fire someone because they're a woman. But you can generally fire employees in Ontario when you're provincially regulated. And what you owe them is something called reasonable notice, which is common law notice. At the minimum, you owe them something called employment standards notice, which is for an employer 1 week per year of service to a maximum of 8 weeks. If the employee's been there more than 5 years and your payroll is more than $2.5 million, then you would owe them an additional 1 week per year of service to a maximum of 26 weeks. They can still sue you for common law notice. Common law notice is based on factors like age, availability of similar employment, type of job, higher ranking jobs acquiring more notice than jobs that are a lower level. And what you'll find is that ranges somewhere between 2 to 6 weeks per year of service, depending on those factors.
Would you be able to provide a scenario that would justify immediate dismissal?
Absolutely. Violence in the workplace. If I work for you and I come up and I smash you in the nose, then then you get to fire me. Absolute just cause. One time, no second chances.
Okay.
Another example is generally theft. If I work for you and I'm a bookkeeper and I steal all the payroll money, then yeah, that's just cause. First offense.
What are the most common challenges you see in terminating or in termination within the workplace?
The most common challenges are the human ones. It's a very difficult thing to do and nobody wants to do it. So they don't take the steps necessary to get it right. Most people don't enjoy confrontation. Most people go out of their way to avoid confrontation. Termination is also one of the most difficult things you can do because you're looking at somebody in the eye and you're telling them they don't measure up, and you know that they need to go home and they need to tell their family, perhaps their children or their parents, that they lost their job. It's a degrading thing to happen to somebody. It's a difficult thing. It's a humiliating thing. And employers understand that what you're doing is you're devastating somebody. Nobody likes to do that. So the most difficult thing is to try and get employers to do something that's very unpleasant. And the reason you do it is the good employees. When you have a bad employee, it can affect the morale of the workplace. You've got someone who isn't doing their share or is coming late or is engaging in misconduct. It affects other employees and it can make good employees leave. And good employees are very hard to find. Good employees cost money to train, and sometimes they can't be replaced with just one person if they're that good. So you want to make the atmosphere of your organization safe for the good employees. And safe doesn't just mean physically safe from violence. It means safe to do their job in a way where they feel valued and a way where they feel like they're not being taken advantage of.
Can you walk me through a textbook situation where progressive discipline would be required?
Let's use the one that's easiest. Someone is chronically late. You tell them, you give them what's called counseling, which isn't discipline. I go up to you, I say, Tracy, you've been late twice this week. If this keeps going, I'm going to have to start disciplining you. Then you come late again and you say, oh, my alarm clock didn't go off. I said, Tracy, I told you this was a problem. I'm going to need to give you a verbal warning. A verbal warning you put in writing, even though it's called verbal, but you put on the top of it verbal warning. I give that to you. The next day you're late again. Then I give you a written warning. I'm like, Tracy, you already had a verbal warning. We've spoken about this. It's really important you're on time. I give you a written warning. The next week you're late again. I give you a suspension. I give you a 1-day suspension. You come back from that suspension, but you're late that morning. I give you a 3-day suspension. You work, you come during the normal time, and then the 3rd day you're late again. I terminate you for just cause.
When would an employer seek legal advice? What type of scenario or situation would require them to seek legal advice?
Depends on the situation. So in terms of the one I just gave you, which is the chronic lateness, it's pretty straightforward. You wouldn't necessarily need a lawyer to do a counseling or a verbal warning. If you're getting closer to termination, then you probably want to speak to a lawyer. In the case of where there's violence or there has been theft, you probably do want to seek legal advice because there may be ways to get the money back. You want to do the just cause termination correctly, because the worst result is terminating someone who's stolen from you, who punched you, and then having to pay them a big payout. So you want to make sure you get that right. I always say at the beginning of the relationship, make sure you have good contracts, make sure you have good employment letters, so that if problems do come up, the legal costs are very low because everything is in writing.
Is progressive discipline often effective if the employer is in tune with it and able to stay on top of it in the event that it's required? Does it usually work?
Yes, it usually works. Progressive discipline usually does result in employees improving their behavior, and you generally don't have to discipline them again.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.